Good morning. It's Tuesday, August 18th. Had somebody ask a question on bodybuilding.com about why we front squat on deadlift day versus, say, a light squat. And this is what I found. One is, and I answered the question, but I'm going to elaborate. I'm going to give a few more points. One of the things I've always liked, and when I was developing this, one of the people that I consulted was Laura Phelps, and she and I both have always agreed, that a great warm up for pulling is squatting. And so when I looked at what I wanted to achieve with this program, one of the things that I found is not only needing a good warm up, is I wanted to pre-exhaust the lifter and myself, where my focal point when I was deadlifting was formed. Now here's why, to be a little more in depth. I think by and large, a lot of lifters, we've got a certain segment of people that are great pullers. And I'll give you an example. I've trained with Steve Goggins a few times, and he's one of the best pullers I've ever seen. And I swear, I think that guy could do leg curls, cartwheels, and shrugs, and it would help his deadlift. Now that doesn't diminish his effort. Let me be clear about that. There's been things in the past that Steve and I have not seen eye to eye on, but you cannot deny that guy, two things. One is he's one of the best ever, and two, I have trained with him. I've seen with my own eyes how hard the guy trains. And he's just one of those outworld, 1% lifters that he just does it, he's just that good. But he also trains hard, at least back in, I'm not sure how hard he trains. Like, he probably trains harder than I do. But anyway, you get the point. So for me, not being a great puller, I've never been a great puller. I had a tendency early in my career just simply to train too heavy too often. And it really hindered me. So when I developed this, and again, the people that I consulted, and I'm using Laura as an example, we all felt like the squat was a great warm-up going into the deadlift. And so I used it as an opportunity to squat again, but a variation, but squat heavy. Now, I kept the volume low because we had squatted 72 hours earlier. And I really like the front squat for positioning and, learning how to stay upright and be explosive. And that kind of fit along the scheme of deadlifting for me. Now I'm condensing because I can be extremely long-winded about this. So what we did then is that we continued the process of power with trap bar. Now I'll get back to the front squat in a minute. Ergonomically, it's a safer way to pull, and it would allow us to pull for power and basically overload the deadlift. And a lot of things going on at the same time. Then we would deadlift. And I found that staying between 70 and 90% for the most part was best for the lifter. That's what, when we went through the process of developing this, we would get to our last session would be 3 singles with 90%. And generally we would have a deload week and we would test. Now that didn't always, that wasn't always the case. But I ran short mini cycles for deadlift, and that seemed to go really, really well for everybody. And we've had great success with it. Now I will, depending on the lifter and how well, especially early on, I have a young lady that I'm doing the programming for her deadlift, and she tested her deadlift and deadlifted 225. And as we got into 90%, it was so easy, I extended the cycle 2 more weeks, where she did 3 singles at 220. So clearly we're above 95%. Now she was really new to deadlifting heavy, not new to lifting weights, not new to being an athlete. She's a CrossFit athlete, and her conditioning is extremely high. And so, she responded extremely well. So I'm just giving you some for instances, but by and large, we stay between 70 and 90%. Now to go back, what we do is we'll run waves with the front squat and the trap bar. And we've got enough equipment now, that we can extend those waves as long as we need to. But just as a basic template, what Jeremy and I did when he was training with us is we would establish a 1 rep max on front squat. The following week would be a triple, and then weeks 3 and 4 would be a paused single and a paused triple. And we stayed within that framework. If the lifter was feeling good, we would schedule to hit a 5-pound PR every 4th week on each event. And again, keeping that threshold of working hard very high, but that there were no subsequent sets. So we're shooting for a heavy lift, and then we're moving on. And based how the warm-ups went, how the performance was going, and that's how we set it. We were always training in a high threshold. And we did the same thing with the trap bar. We'd have a raised handle single, raised triple, flat handle single, and a flat triple. And then we would repeat the process. And so we've had incredibly good success, and the recovery has always been better. So after we deadlift, we would do chain pulls for the first 3 weeks, 60, 65, and 70%. We would pull to lockout as fast as we could, put the weight down, never taking our hands off the bars, reload, and pull again. And that really helped with the accommodating resistance on learning to accelerate, especially through the transition and sticking point, but also taught positioning, because when we kept our hands on the bar, you'd really feel on that second pull. Remember, you don't have that eccentric, concentric motion with deadlift, so you have to learn how to create that loading phase by how you set up and load into the bar as you engage in the pull. And again, we had great success with that, and we lessened, the stimulus as far as the weight significantly. But again, it all depends on the lifter. Now, I'll extend the chain pull, sometimes, the full cycle. It all just depends on the lifter, where they're at, and what the issues are. And we've added some movements or taken some away based on what the lifter needs. So that kind of gives you an idea of why, and covers what Jeremy is doing and why we did it that way. Again, we've certainly, the training has evolved, and I will add or take away based on what the lifter is needing. If there's something to address, we do some deficit pulls, we do some pause pulls, and those types of things. And it again depends on how the lifter how they recover and what their conditioning is and where they are in their cycle. As we get closer to a meet, I'll pull some of that volume. But early on, we'll even do either stiff leg deadlifts or RDLs of very moderate weight, 6 to 8 reps for a few sets, and and that's the basis of the program. And again, we have people that have started and are adding in a cycle sometimes 15 to 20 kilos. So 35 to 45 pounds. Now that's not. It depends on how advanced the lifter is. Eventually, that cycle's lower. But I've got guys that I've been coaching for between a year and 2 years that still will add in a training cycle 5 to 10 kilos using this type of method. And the thing is that the squat tends to respond as well, because we're squatting that front squat, pretty heavy. What we've done, and again, this is longer winded than I wanted it to be, but if we're going to have a long cycle, I'll add different bars. We've got a regular cambered bar that is a normal cambered bar. We'll front squat with it. I've got a long cambered bar. If you've seen Mike Hidleski, he has the long. So I think it's a New York barbell or a TDS bar, and works extremely well, especially in the front squat. And then we'll even use a safety squat bar. And I understand technically, for all you guys out there that are ready to tear something apart, that when you front squat with a safety squat bar, that the leverage is different because of the I got all that. but it is definitely a different stimulus. And we have had great success with that. Again, we're doing it a heavy single, a heavy triple, a pause single, and a pause triple. And we've ran long, like if we have a 16-week cycle, that's how we'll run it. So the lifter's always trying to set a PR a la West Side. It's the same principle. So that kind of gives you a better overview of the deadlift. And we'll do a little bit of assistance if the lifter, again, it all depends on time and those things. I'll have them do some leg curls, if that's what they want. With all the pulling and the RDLs and stiff legs, I'm not sure that it's necessary. But in fact, it's not necessary. But some of them want to pump those hamstrings up, and I always like for the lifter to do some tibia movement and calf movement. It doesn't have to be heavy, shouldn't be heavy, but we want to keep the ankle mobile, supple, and conditioned. I mean, it's everything for balance. So there you have it. That covers deadlift.